Hi, I am Ali Nisus, registered nurse and managing director of Nice Us Geriatric Home Care Training and Agency Limited, and this is Return the Favor, a web series giving you tips on how to properly care for your elderly parents. They took good care of you as a child, so now it's time to return the favor. And today it's episode 11, and we are talking of the dynamics of wound healing. So this is the final installment of a 4-part wound series, 4 episodes dedicated to wounds, all about wounds, wound care, wound assessment, and now it's wound healing. So I want to let you know, so the episode 8 was about basics of skin and anatomy. The basics of skin, anatomy and physiology. Anatomy means structure and physiology means function, right? So we looked at that. Episode 9 was wound classification and wound type. And then episode 10, the last episode, we looked at basics of wound assessment. So I will encourage you to go back to those episodes. Start from episode 8 and come all the way up. It will help you better understand this final segment, right? And as I always say, this is not medical advice. I am a registered nurse for the past 17 years now, and this is just tips so that you can better be equipped to assist your elderly or another parent, right? So let's get into it. Types of wound healing. So when you have a wound, it's a break in the continuity of the skin. And your skin is the first line of defense for your body. So you definitely want to keep the integrity of the skin to make sure that your body has the best defense system, right? So you want to encourage healing and you want to foster it as much as possible. So we have 3 types of wound healing, right? We're just getting into the dynamics of it all, right? So we have primary intention healing, secondary intention healing, and tertiary intention healing. So this basically describes how the wound heals, right? So the primary intention healing, there's no loss of tissue. And go back to episode 8, basics of skin, and you'll get to understand these terminologies used. So the broken skin, right? It's superficial, it's not deep, right? So you don't have, it's not like a gaping hole, so you don't have that hole to fill. And that's where primary intention healing, it's just on the surface. Secondary intention healing now, there's some depth to it, right? So it is a wound that involves some amount of tissue loss, and it may heal in this manner. So you're looking at a wound like a bed sore, where it can have like a gaping hole, right? You have those types of wounds, and they take longer to heal, right? And it has a gap, so that must be filled. And the body now fills it by a process it calls granulation. Granulation now is when you have the little tissues just growing and filling up that gap day in after day in. So it's getting less and less deeper. It's filling back up. That process is called granulation, right? It may leave a scar at the end of it. So after the flesh builds back up, it may leave a scar at the end. And these type of wounds that heal like this, as I said before, pressure ulcers, right? Now the tertiary intention healing, that's when the wound itself, it's a bit far gone, right? It's worse than secondary. The wound is in a bad state and there needs to be a little more intervention before it can actually heal. There is a gap, so it's like a gaping hole, but it must be left and treated before it starts to heal because it's infected. If you allow it to heal with the infection, that infection gets trapped there. So with this type of wound, it has to allow, you must treat the infection first, allow it to exudate, which means to drain the inflammation, right? And then you allow it to heal. So doctors now would order that the wound be drained, all the inflammation in a drain. Then it would fill up by granulation. They would use certain treatments or medication so it will fill up, and then they would suture it, so to close it and then let it heal, right? So a wound does not necessarily heal. A wound that does not heal under secondary intention may become infected, and it may go on to the tertiary intention healing. So it's great to get it in that phase, the secondary intention healing phase, so it won't be complicated. You don't want it to get infected, because infection is a problem. And remember, you're talking about human flesh. So the infection is not going to stay there. It's going to go into the bloodstream and go other places and can cause other problems. So you really want to get the healing on the go. So although there are different types of wound healing, all wounds heal in the same step-by-step process. So what we looked at, the secondary, the tertiary, those are the types of healings. Now we're looking at the phases. What happens in step 1, what happens in step 2. So let's get into that. So regardless of size, regardless of cause, regardless of how you got the wound in the first place, it starts with hemostasis, which means you're stopping the blood. So the body has a mechanism in place to stop the bleeding. Now, sometimes because of the nature of the wound or the size of the wound, that mechanism is not strong enough. For instance, if I get my arm cut off, the body can't stop that type of bleeding. But if you get a scab on your, a cut on your hand, you will see that, after a while you get a scab. That's the way the body stops the bleeding. So that's the first stage. And then the second stage now, it's called an inflammatory response. So the edges of the wound swell, your white blood cells destroy the bacteria in the area. And when they do that, it also destroys the blood clot, right? And that causes redness, pain, swelling, and warmth may occur. So after inflammation, you have a phase 3 called proliferation. And that's where the tissues around the wound, the neighboring tissues, they supply that wound with blood, they supply it with nutrients just to help that wound get better, right? So it forms a soft pink tissue, which we said before is granulation tissue. And now the final phase is phase 4, which is maturation. So we have special cells called fibroblasts. They come in and they form something called, they secrete something called collagen. And collagen is like a glue-like substance, and it serves as scar tissue. So it helps get everything together, right? And healing is completed when the new layer is formed. Remember, you have to fill back up the space, and healing is completed when the new layer is formed. So in reality, we spoke about 4 phases. For phase 1, hemostasis, the blood stop. Phase 2, you have inflammation. So all the body's special cells come to fight any germs and so on. Phase 3, you have proliferation. So you have the tissue kind of getting all the nutrients it needs from other neighbors, and so on. So everybody comes to help. And phase 4, maturation, where healing is complete. It may not happen in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Different phases may precede others and so forth, right? But it's good to know the process, yeah? And now going on to factors that delay healing in the elderly, because this whole series is about elderly parents, and we need to understand their perspective, and we need to be aware of what matters to them. So factors that delay healing in the elderly, we have for them everything slow down. So you have slow regeneration of skin cells. It's harder for the body to create these cells that are needed to fill up the gap and to create healing. So that happens. You have poor oxygenation. Their blood vessels are not as supple and strong as before, so it's a bit harder for the oxygen to go through and come out, and supplement each cell. You have impaired respiration or immune function. The oxygen is needed, but the respiratory system is not as cracking as before, and the immune system is low. And all the tissues in their body is weak, so the healing would be slowed. Now let's look at factors that complicate healing in the elderly. Those are factors that delay. We have factors now that complicate the healing. And one of the main factors is poor nutrition and hydration. A lot of elderly persons, they don't drink enough water and they don't remember to drink enough water. So you have to constantly be giving them water, because remember, your body is 70% of water. You're supposed to be consuming a lot of water every single day. And poor nutrition may happen because their dentures might be slack and they don't tell you. And whilst they're eating, the dentures pinching them and they stop eating because they don't like the pain, but they forget to tell you. So those are some things that may happen. They may have loss of appetite because they're depressed. They may experience temporary dementia. The Alzheimer's may make them forget that they want to eat. They may not have enough money to buy the nourishing food that they need. And they may have lack of support. You can have all the money and nobody to go out in the road to buy it for you, and you can't go for it. So those things complicate the healing process. Chronic diseases as well, such as diabetes, it will complicate the healing process. And using multiple medications sometimes can have side effects that slow the healing process. And this has brought us to the end of All About Wounds series, and I hope you enjoyed it. Look out for episode 12. Don't forget to subscribe to get more content like this. And if you want more details on the topic for today, check out the blog on our website. Link in the description. Until next time.